Hi guys, and welcome to the next Tech Talk straight here from Automechanica Frankfurt. And we now have a very interesting guest. It's Jan Bambas from Schaeffler, and an even more interesting topic. We talked a lot about the topic with the other guests we had so far. The topic is sustainability. But first, Jan, thanks for joining us today, for taking the time. Could you first introduce yourself a little bit? What are you doing at Schaeffler and what are your current topics?
Thank you very much for the invitation, first of all. And secondly, we value a lot the partnership with Tech Alliance, not only on the side of the customer and supplier perspective, but also as a shareholder of Tech Alliance. So my role at Schaeffler is dual, I would say, these days. I represent the division Schaeffler Automotive Aftermarket. And at our headquarters, I lead all the work on advocacy and associations, our presence around the world. And since this year, I'm also representing the topic of sustainability. I coordinate the sustainability topics within the aftermarket division. So obviously, it's not only me. We have a team of colleagues that are working in different work streams on the material side, production and processes, as well as on product side.
Yes, and sustainability within Schaeffler is a very big topic. As far as I know, you set two ambitious goals. One would be due in 2030, and the second step would be 2040. Can you tell us a bit more about those?
That is correct. Obviously, if you want to define your strategy on such a vast topic, you also need to see what you want to reach, what you want to achieve. So in principle, last year in November, we have set two important goals for us. One milestone is 2030, where we would completely decarbonize our production. If for those that are knowledgeable, it's scope 1 and 2. That includes also, for instance, the electricity and heat that we purchase from external suppliers. And by 2040, we would like to completely decarbonize the value chain upstream. That's the scope 3 upstream. So in principle, whatever materials and services that we are purchasing from our partners up the value chain.
Which one is the more difficult? I expect the second one will be far more difficult for you.
That is correct. So in principle, between 2030 and 2040, the 75% of the emissions upstream need to be decarbonized. Yes, it depends on the portfolio and the business of that particular supplier. Speaking about Schaeffler, most of the products are made of steel, and as you can expect, the material side, in terms of emissions, comes from the steel, aluminium, and few of the materials. So the core will have to be done in that decade between 2030 and 2040. As I said, roughly 75%.
Yes, and do you work together with external partners, or do you have some guidance from associations in this?
Definitely. Without that, it will not be possible. Especially speaking about the upstream side, when I mentioned our suppliers, our partners, this is a collaborative work. We cannot do that on our own because we are purchasing from other companies. So we as Schaeffler believe that the collaborative approach is the right one. We would like to give our hand. So we are starting with the transparency. So we need to have a better idea of where the emissions come from the materials and from the transportation and other processes, also upstream. And then we are ready to support our suppliers to address those emissions and find the right levers and initiatives that will help to decarbonize the full upstream cycle.
And on the way to 2030 or 2040, so what are the steps which have already been finalized from your side?
So starting with the scope 1 and 2 on the production side, and then what we, for instance, purchase, we have a number of initiatives already. Already last year, in 2021, we have actually managed to decarbonize completely all the plants, all the sites in Europe. That's quite an achievement. The job is not yet finished, so we expect that by 2024 already we will be able to have, for instance, fully renewable electricity that is purchased by Schaeffler Group. So in principle, 2025 we should be reaching 75% on the scope 1 and 2, and then the remaining part on by 2030. But I can mention, for instance, renewable energy or energy efficiency. For energy efficiency itself, there is approximately 200 different measures that are put in place. Last year we managed to get to 57 gigawatt hours of decrease in energy consumption, and we should continue our efforts to reach the 100 gigawatt hours as planned by our set target.
And one thing that's for sure, you're not alone in this journey. Most of the big guys, the big manufacturers, they set ambitious goals for themselves. But how about smaller manufacturers? How can they compete on that, or how could they reach climate neutrality?
I would say there are two options, two streams that are valuable in this regard. One is maybe to see and the big suppliers are ready to help, or even the smaller ones. We have different partnerships, so I believe that we can lead by example on that front, and that's why we are also trying to be maybe even more transparent than other companies, because that's our value at Schaeffler. And secondly, there's a role for the associations, and part of my role is also to represent Schaeffler different associations around the world, or support the colleagues that are attending the working groups and meetings from the expert point of view. But yes, sharing the best practices is important. We have I believe I can say started certain initiative this week on sustainability for the automotive aftermarket, where we would like to liaise with the partners across the value chain. So we met with the wholesalers up to the workshop level, because that's a collaborative approach. Without that, it will not work. And on top of that, we have also companies like Tech Alliance or Caruso, which are supporting those processes in different ways with information data, and that's also needed in order to decarbonize and achieve our goals.
Definitely. And when sustainability is the bigger picture, how does circular economy fit in there? Because we had a talk with Maria Bonelli from CECO. She was here as well.
Circular economy is a great topic. Many people see it as environmental concept. It is not. It's an economic theory in principle. It's about the material efficiency, but there's definitely great value add of circular economy, not only for the business, but also in terms of our climate path and decarbonization. Because if you look at some of the processes that we can give products a second, third, fourth life, that we can reuse the currently used products, or we can recycle so that we can put the materials back into the processes of production, that has a very concrete direct impact also on climate efforts.
And what role do you think will electrification play in all of this? Because when you see electric vehicles, okay, lesser parts, different parts, but certainly more expensive, labor-intensive parts, so it would be more worth bringing them back in the circular economy.
Definitely. We show it at our stand. We have a nice interactive panel, and especially for the scope 3 downstream, so basically looking at the usage phase. One of the topics and themes that we are showing is also e-mobility. The technological side is again another opportunity how we can get on the climate path, and let's say for the whole world with climate Paris Agreement, and which speaks about the year 2050 as the key milestone, but also for us internally, that we see the role for technological side, we see the role for circular economy and material efficiency.
And the sustainability topic, basically, I guess the whole market understood by now that it is something which needs to be done, and it will come, but many still see it as a burden. But you could also see it as a room for opportunity for many of the players.
It is fully valid for Schaeffler. yes, there is certain hygiene, and we can see that also the whole process is driven partially by regulations. But we see more and more the role for the business because it's not only a challenge and it's not only a hygiene, a must for companies, but it's also opportunity. And that's why we like to transform and to make our business greener, to make our products greener, not to do greenwash, but in principle change our business and bring it to the next level.
Definitely. And before we finish our little chat, one last question I ask everybody. When we meet again at Automechanika 2030, so in 8 years' time, I know this will be one of your first finish line in your initiative. What will be the topics we will talk about then?
That is correct, and I hope to be maybe sitting here still with the Schaeffler logo on my back. I believe that that's only part of it. Yes, it will become an inherent part of our business. We have certain goals to achieve. At the same time, the whole market is undergoing major transformation on different fronts, and we look now what is going on with the energy, what is going on with the commodities, what is going on the transportation side, on the supply chain. So I believe that there is really an opportunity to tackle the new market. So maybe the topic of 2030 could be how the new market will look like, how to put Schaeffler in the middle of that market. Especially the suppliers will have a role to play with many different stakeholders around it, be it insurance, be it fleets, be it workshops, of course, distributors, be digital companies, and last but not least, also the consumers, so we can get closer to that level. And to conclude, at Schaeffler we have launched a Climate Day a few months ago, and we also wanted to integrate the employees and the people.
When you collected ideas internally.
That is correct, and we have collected more than 20,000 ideas that are also helping us to transform our business. And not only that, but also transform many processes on personal level.
And also demonstrates that your whole workforce is behind this goal.
That is correct. This whole sustainability culture is an important element and will be the driving force. So I hope that by 2030 we will have really good examples to show here at Automechanika.
Great. So there's a bright, or let's say a Schaeffler green future ahead. Thank you very much, Jan, for taking the time again. And I hope we will catch up soon on your initiative.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.